Hello everyone, are you still annoyed by your NDS and 3DS screens yellowing with age, the small screen being too tiny, and the large screen pixelated? Today, I'm introducing the world's first mass-produced dual-screen Android phone that lets you play NDS and 3DS games in super large, ultra-high definition, the AYANEO Pocket DS. Its upper screen is a 7-inch, a 16:9 1080p OLED screen with 800 nits brightness and up to a 165 Hz refresh rate. The lower screen is a 5-inch 1024x768 4x3 LCD that perfectly scales NDS games at 4x integer. It has 550 nits brightness and the Snapdragon G3x Gen 2 processor, handling the 3DS emulator flawlessly. It reveals a 7-inch 16:9 1080p OLED screen. Due to its large size, the 1080p resolution has noticeable pixelation when viewed up close, but it's still the best quality OLED screen I've seen on an Android handheld. The best part is the global DC dimming. I don't get any noticeable flicker when I'm filming, which is super convenient. Below it is a 5-inch 4x3 LCD secondary screen with a 1024x768 resolution. The pixels are quite noticeable, feeling similar to the 4-inch 480p screen on the RG405M. This screen has 550 nits of brightness and good colors. People often criticize the lower screen's poor color gamut due to the significant color difference between screens, but I find its colors quite decent. However, its resolution doesn't handle shaders well. Only NDS can achieve 4x integer scaling. For shaders, it's completely outclassed by current 960p screens. The bottom of my unit's screen, these two areas have very noticeable light bleed, with a slight amount on the right side. When the screen's hinge is rotated, the upper right corner becomes very prominent but vanishes once released. The light bleed on my unit is quite severe. This DSO screen light bleed issue has caused quite a stir, and I've seen some outrageously exaggerated photos with screens looking like vibrant rainbows. Then they ask, how's mine? This sort of an exaggeration. It's easy to check an LCD for light bleed. In a lit room, if you don't see any whitening at the screen's edges against a black background, then there's none. I don't consider light bleed that's only visible in the dark to be actual light bleed for an LCD, because my Huawei tablet's LCD screen also shows some whitening at the edges in the dark, and so does my laptop. That's true LCD light bleed. Don't be swayed by the narrative. For light bleed, most experienced players' first reaction is to loosen screws, but the DS casing lacks visible screw holes, leaving many at a loss. I estimate 2 screws are inside the trigger buttons. The rest are clips. Clamshell devices are harder to disassemble, so I advise against it unless necessary. This hinge has strong resistance with a very wide suspension range, allowing it to stay open from about a 15-degree angle. Until about this degree, and then it will automatically. The joystick has a broad range of motion, but due to its recessed design, the cap is rather small, resulting in a rather average feel. The joystick cap next to it is much larger. All other buttons utilize soft dome switches, which lack the crisp tactile feedback of other dome switches. The 2 on the bottom left are for volume down, and the 1 on the bottom right is for the menu, while the other is a home button that instantly returns you to the desktop. These 2 small dots are silicone buffer pads. This is the sub-screen button, letting you switch its display and controller focus modes. This is the AEA space button, and this is the performance mode shortcut key. The mic is in the center. The bottom has the power button with fingerprint recognition and volume keys. Stereo speakers are on both sides. The external audio is great, especially the loud volume. As a high-end Android device, the DS still lacks a 3.5mm headphone jack. The bottom only has a TF card slot and the back features a fan intake. Standard features include microswitch L/R buttons, Hall linear triggers, and 2 function keys. The center has a Type-C port and an air vent. Why another power light and mic opening here? The device weighs about 537 grams, which for regular Android handhelds, that weight is quite substantial. Yet with dual screens, a 7-inch and a 5-inch its weight is evenly distributed. It doesn't feel heavy when held with both hands. It's only truly weighty when you hold it with one hand, using the other for touchscreen input. I've seen some netizens with muscle weakness on forums who only accept handhelds under 200 grams. For them, there's no pleasing them. Many bloggers have already reviewed the Pocket DS in detail. So in this video, I'll only focus on the experience of playing NDS and 3DS games on it. Features like gaming on the upper screen while using the lower for guides or recording. I feel that's a created demand. If you have it, it's fine, but it's not essential. essential. First, comparing the Pocket DS to the NDS ILL. The Pocket DS is slightly larger, but its thickness is a whole different story. At 534 grams, you definitely need to add a grip, or the ergonomics will be bad. On my NDS ILL, the screen edges, especially the four corners, are starting to turn yellow, and sometimes the boot screen flickers. I don't know why, but turning it off and on a few times fixes it. For some reason, the yellowing is really obvious to the naked eye, but it looks pure white on camera. Friends who have anyone with a 3DS or NDS understands, these older screens are usually dim or yellowed at the edges, with few remaining perfectly white. The NDS ILL screen, at 4.2 inches, has very visible pixels, making 3D game details poor. For instance, Link's eyes here appear as a mosaic. Then there's the NDSi, which is considerably smaller than the original DS. The 3.25-inch screen offers a more refined picture. My black NDSi screen is severely yellowed, especially the lower screen's left side looks faulty, and the upper screen's top right is similar. This greatly affects the viewing experience. The AYANEO Pocket DS also has two emulators. The Citra emulator has advanced features, but this dual-screen version lacks an English interface. So let's play the classic emulator. First, the game I'm most eager to play is Castlevania, Order of Ecclesia. This game is primarily on the lower screen with a pure pixel art style, demanding perfect pixel mapping. The AYANEO Pocket DS's lower screen offers perfect side-by-side pixel mapping. The visuals are sharp, clean pixels, and the text is very neat. However, the color transitions, especially in shadows, appear unnatural. In this scenario, just enable the dot matrix desaturator for a more comfortable image. However, the emulator I downloaded from the official AYANEO Pocket DS group lacks a dot matrix filter. Only scan lines are available, which is a totally different style. Notice how the shadow transitions are now much more natural. They'll likely release an update with the dot matrix desaturator soon. Next, I'll switch to a game primarily displayed on the upper screen, which it has to be Pokemon. Both screens are currently at maximum brightness. The upper screen is over 300 nits brighter than the lower, creating a strong contrast. The upper screen's colors also look better, which is instantly more satisfying. You can see that with aspect ratio scaling, the upper screen's image is larger than the lower. For games where the screens don't interact, I feel the experience is definitely superior to the original console. Both screens are large and immersive, offering a fresh experience. There's also a speed up function, as playing without it is truly uncomfortable. Next is the ultimate test for this device with DS games. Titles like Dragon Quest and Contra 4, where the screens interact. These require the Citra emulator, which allows screen size adjustment. The Citra emulator has its own LCD filter, but I feel this LCD filter effect is pretty terrible. It practically adds a grid to the picture. It's only good for now. We'll have to wait for better filter versions, because of the 300 nit brightness difference between the two screens. For games when the screens interact, we need to adjust the upper screen's brightness to about 55%, so both screens look similar, but the upper OLED screen's colors are simply too vibrant. Look at the grass. The upper screen is a vibrant green, while the lower screen shows a more teal-colored meadow. The color temperatures also differ slightly. The lower screen is warmer, the upper cooler. Currently, the system lacks color temperature adjustment. For instance, the sky here shows completely different colors on each screen. Wow, the color difference is quite significant. It's not the lower screen's quality, but the vast disparity in color styles between the two. I still notice a clear disconnect between the upper and lower screens. What are your thoughts? I've always felt OLED screen colors are too intense, making older games look somewhat distorted. LCDs tend to appear more natural. I heard there's software that lowers screen saturation. Hopefully it will be available for the DS eventually. For pure touchscreen games like Zelda, I only have my finger, lacking a capacitive stylus, and it feels pretty good. I use my fingers. Some videos claim stylus input has more lag than finger. I don't play these pure touchscreen games, so I won't comment further. Next is Taiko no Tatsujin. The DS screen is large enough that a stylus isn't needed. I had an incense burner blocking my way, which affected my play, but I made virtually no mistakes. The touch response feels decent. And then there's Rhythm Heaven for the 3DS. For this game, you must hold it vertically, like a book. The initial level involves sliding your finger across the screen to strike objects with a coin. I didn't experience any lag with finger input. My hits were quite precise. The only issue with touch controls is that you need to tap the screen center each time for the game to register the touch perfectly. Tapping near the edges often yields no response. Doesn't work. A 537-gram machine is just too heavy for this kind of game. My hand started to feel sore in less than a minute. You really have to play these games on the original hardware. For now, the NDS gaming experience gets a 7 or 8 out of 10, which is a pretty decent level. But because the screen is so big and the current filter is so bad, the DS can't fully replicate the pixel-perfect beauty of the original. Which is a shame. Next, compared to my trusty old 3DS, the 3DS is quite small. The DS is a behemoth next to it. I've owned every 3DS model, but the actual display quality feels terrible. I can still play NDS, but with the 3DS I pick it up, play a bit, and immediately put it down. Its screen is even dimmer than the NDS, and the new 3DS's display is a massive mosaic. The NDS's pixel aesthetic is missing. While smaller screens are sharp, they're too small. So I only kept my trusty old 3DS, which I've had for over a decade. Its screen edges are yellowing, so I was most excited to play 3DS games on this DS. A 2DS emulator is a more fitting description. Note that the DS was the first dual screen device to ship. Saw collected final payments only on October 9th, and the Fangtang just shipped. Being the first to develop and ship a dual-screen Android device, some software issues are perfectly normal. For instance, I opened the 3DS emulator from the lower screen and noticed a speck on the upper screen. I tried to flick it away, inadvertently touching the screen. The button focus then shifted to the upper screen, making it impossible to control the game, yet there was no visual cue. If I press B now, the upper screen will exit the game, and everything shifts to the lower screen. Then you must exit and restart the game. If you accidentally touch the upper screen, the correct way to fix it is to long press the bottom left button to move the focus back to the lower screen, and then it's fine. See, there's an animation showing the focus shifting, but I found this complex, and there were no tutorials in the official DS group chat, only Bilibili uploaders shared them. My trusty old, the 3DS screen is 3.53 inches, but the DS display area is almost 4 times that of my trusty old 3DS. Going from my old 3DS to the DS, the visual impact is stunning. Bright, vibrant colors and multi-resolution are truly amazing. The 5-inch lower screen offers a much better experience than the previous 476. For example, with this Zelda Bell, the 476's screen was just too small, making it very difficult. Tapping. With the DS, it's much more convenient. However, multi-resolution only affects 3D models. Low-resolution 2D textures actually look rougher on a larger screen. The lower screen, in particular, because it's a subscreen, mainly displays pure 2D graphics, which look blurry. The Citra emulator has a dot filter. Turning it on improves things, but since the lower screen isn't pixel perfect, this dot matrix is uneven. The coarse 2D textures on the upper screen remain unchanged even with multiple resolutions. For those, you can only hope for HD textures. I'm still not satisfied playing 3DS games now, but this is not the fault of the DS itself. It's because the 3DS emulator isn't good enough. The Citra emulator has been around for many years, but many games still stutter a bit, unable to achieve the complete fluidity of a PS2 emulator, especially with top-tier graphical games like Kirby, Planet Robobot and Kid Icarus, Uprising. The Suyu emulator is new and GPU-driven, making it relatively smoother, but it still can't achieve real hardware smoothness. It does, however, support higher resolution locking and save states. For 3DS games on this DS, the Suyu emulator is practically all you need, yet this emulator currently lacks. The dot matrix desaturator makes the lower screen very blurry. Let's test the latency with Rhythm Heaven. I hit most beats, so the latency seems acceptable. While it still stutters a bit compared to the real console, it's enough for me to abandon the actual hardware. The original 3DS screen is truly awful, and its slide pad is also terrible. I only take it out to experience its 3D, then it continues gathering dust. In conclusion, the AYANEO Pocket DS still can't entirely replace the original. For NDS dual screen games, the two screens have a stark color difference, and the 2D games lack the pixel-perfect aesthetic of the original screen, and one-handed play is impossible. 3DS is emulator limited, so it can't run as smoothly as the real thing. But compared to other emulator handhelds, first, the screen is large enough for great feedback. Second, its lower screen is a 3:2 LCD, which is far better for NDS games than the 8:7 lower screens on rival devices. But the 534g weight and inevitable light bleed on the lower screen are big drawbacks. Also, with the Yuzu emulator, AR glasses can give you an even better 3D effect than the original, though it's not naked eye 3D.